John Smith was determined to secure a collaboration with David White's family. This deal was crucial for solidifying his position as the heir. His uncle James Smith's family was eagerly watching for any mistake that could allow his cousin Robert Smith to take his place. John Smith sat at the head of the Smith Corporation's table, feeling his limbs go numb. He didn't need to look up to sense the intense stare from across the table. Why did the person sitting next to David White have a face he once knew all too well?
Surprised, sister?
Too surprised. John was about to be scared to death. Michael White was not my ex-boyfriend. Because before he could become my boyfriend, I had ruthlessly abandoned him. This matter, well, it wasn't entirely my fault. Who told this kid to forego the privileged life of the White family's young master, insisting on working part-time even in college? Half a year ago, while wandering around an amusement park, I spotted this strikingly handsome boy at a glance. Under the scorching sun, he wore a uniform, yet his beauty made him stand out from the crowd. My long-dormant desires were once again awakened.
I don't like older women. Don't interfere with my work.
The more he resisted me, the more excited I became. He didn't like me? Perfect. So, I pursued him even more diligently, trying to please this beautiful younger brother without disrupting his life. Michael White was the epitome of a sharp tongue and a soft heart. His harsh words were merely a cover for his shy nature. I knew he would secretly regret his words every time he was mean to me. I knew, but I didn't say anything. I just enjoyed watching him struggle with his guilt and pride. During those times, Michael White was like a beautiful kitten that had scratched its owner and then peeked at them. I could say that during that period, he was truly my favorite person. Seeing him smile made me happy, and seeing him anxious made me worry too. It was a young and vibrant period of ambiguity that didn't belong to someone my age. Our relationship took a sharp turn for the worse on my birthday. Michael White used the money he earned from selling software to buy me a diamond necklace. This necklace wasn't particularly expensive for me, but for a college student who needed to work part-time to pay for tuition, it was a fortune.
You're at least a woman, so I just bought you a necklace.
His words were still harsh, but his eyes were sparkling, like a child seeking a reward. Yet, I could no longer find him adorable. I couldn't believe he didn't know the name of the pendant, True Heart. He wanted to give me his true heart, but I was so flustered that I returned the gift. At that moment, I knew things were going to go wrong. My refusal of the gift made Michael White angry for a long time. Just when I thought he would retreat to a safe distance because of it, Michael White confessed his feelings to me. The specifics of that day are blurry. All I remember is Michael White's trembling hand and the rose that shook with it. I rejected his confession without any hesitation. The moment he fell for me, my feelings for him vanished completely.
Do you know what you're saying? I can change my mind at any time. Don't be ungrateful.
He might not have realized that his eyes were red when he said that. But I had no pity, and even kindly asked, "How much did the roses cost? I can reimburse you. If you're short on money, you should save it." At that time, I thought Michael White was just a poor college student working part-time. Of course, Michael White didn't take my money. He even thought I rejected him because he was poor. Seeing that he didn't want my money, I felt I had done my duty and turned to leave.
How can you do this? What about the wonderful time we've had over the past 6 months?
The last thing I said to him that day was, "It's just seaweed." John Smith was striving to secure a collaboration opportunity with David White's family. For Emily Smith, this deal was crucial to solidify her position as the heir.
As long as I clinch this deal, my position will be secured.
Her uncle James Smith's family was eagerly eyeing her position, hoping for her to make a mistake so that her cousin Robert Smith could take her place.
Fortunately, from all perspectives, John Smith is the best choice for David White's family.
Unfortunately, the person sitting next to the decision-maker of David White's family had a familiar face.
Why does Michael White have to be here?
She stole a glance at him during the negotiations. Michael White gave a sinister smile.
Surprised, sister?
Too surprised, I'm about to faint.
Michael White is young and completely free of the bad habits we old hands have. For instance, if it were me, I would take advantage of my position to find ways to retaliate against those who had wronged me. But Michael White didn't.
So far, so good. He hasn't tried to sabotage the deal.
Though he was arrogant and sharp-tongued, he surprisingly had boundaries and didn't let personal feelings interfere with work. The collaboration between the White and Smith families proceeded according to protocol, without him taking the opportunity to blackmail me or trying to sabotage the deal.
We just need to negotiate the profit share now. I can do this.
To ensure this collaboration succeeds, even I have started working overtime. Late at night, I would happily open Thomas White's interview column to feast my eyes. This man just gets better looking the more you see him. Look at that high nose bridge, those charming eyes. How can someone be so good looking?
After absorbing the energy of a handsome man, I was finally filled with motivation. After all, someone once taught me that money can buy everything. My wealth has indeed bought me countless joys in the realm of romance.
To pursue Thomas White, I must secure my position as the heir of John Smith. I reached for the materials provided by the White family, and as I flipped through the thick dossier, an inconspicuous card fell out. It was Thomas White's business card.
Well, isn't this a case of having a pillow delivered when you're drowsy? Although I didn't know why the meticulous Mr. White would accidentally leave his business card, I certainly had to seize this heaven-sent opportunity.
The next day, I sent Thomas White 2 messages. The first was an introduction of myself and a polite explanation of how I got his contact information. As for the second, it was an invitation to a small gathering over the weekend.
Paper men are nice, but the real, living ones make my heart race even more.
John Smith was striving to secure a collaboration opportunity with David White's family. For me, as long as I could clinch this deal, my position as the heir would be solidified. Whether for the sake of John Smith or for my own benefit, this collaboration was crucial. After all, my Uncle James Smith's family was eagerly eyeing my position, hoping for me to make a mistake so that my cousin Robert Smith could take my place. Fortunately, from all perspectives, John Smith was the best choice for David White's family. Unfortunately, I sat at the head of the Smith Corporation's table, feeling my limbs go numb. I didn't need to look up to sense the death stare from across the table. Why did the person sitting next to the decision-maker of David White's family have a face I had once toyed with? I stole a glance at him during the negotiations. Michael White gave a sinister smile, his lips slightly parted as he mouthed.
Surprised, sister?
Too surprised, I was about to be scared to death. After that, whenever I arranged a private meeting with Thomas White, he would always show up. But he was invariably accompanied by a smiling Michael White. I couldn't tell if this was Mr. White's polite refusal or Michael White's deliberate interference. It wasn't until a business banquet half a month later that I finally seized the opportunity to corner Thomas White alone on the terrace. With no obstacles in my way, I unleashed all the cheesy pickup lines I had accumulated over this time.
Thomas, at our age, both unmarried and with similar financial standings, we could speak frankly. I wasn't really looking for a romantic relationship with him, I just enjoyed the thrill of pursuing him.
Thomas White didn't leave with a cold face. Instead, he held his wine glass, listening to me intently with a smile.
This is the back of my hand, and this is the top of my foot. And you are my treasure.
Before I could see Thomas White's reaction, I heard the glass door of the terrace being yanked open. Michael White stood there, his face livid.
Didn't you say I was your only treasure? Emily Smith, do you copy and paste your confessions to everyone?
What nonsense was he spouting? This wasn't a confession, just a one-sided expression of affection. As I hesitated whether to brush him off, a cool young man stepped out from the shadows behind a large potted plant on the side of the terrace. Narrator, tone, shocked the young man, who seemed out of place at this bustling business banquet, had probably hidden on the terrace for that reason. When I saw his face, I finally understood what it meant to be struck by lightning. The young man, with a face somewhat resembling Michael White's, wore a self-mocking smile.
So your real name is Emily Smith, Miss Windsor.
Michael White seemed to have guessed something, his face turning even darker. He glared at me, looking like he was ready to pounce and tear me apart.
Aren't you going to give me an explanation, sister?
The last two words were spat out through gritted teeth, more like addressing a mortal enemy than a sister. But I had no time to deal with him. I was almost in a daze, staring at the familiar yet unfamiliar young man before me.
Uncle, she is the one I mentioned to you 2 years ago. My fiancée.
John Smith was striving to secure a collaboration opportunity with David White's family. For me, as long as I could clinch this deal, my position as the heir would be solidified. Whether for the sake of John Smith or for my own benefit, this collaboration was crucial. After all, my Uncle James Smith's family was eagerly eyeing my position, hoping for me to make a mistake so that my cousin Robert Smith could take my place.
Relieved, this deal is crucial. If we can secure it, our future is guaranteed.
Serious. We understand the importance, but there are many factors to consider.
Fortunately, from all perspectives, John Smith was the best choice for David White's family. Unfortunately.
Sinister, surprised, sister.
Too surprised, I was about to be scared to death. John Smith was striving to secure a collaboration opportunity with David White's family. For me, as long as I could clinch this deal, my position as the heir would be solidified. Whether for the sake of John Smith or for my own benefit, this collaboration was crucial. After all, my Uncle James Smith's family was eagerly eyeing my position, hoping for me to make a mistake so that my cousin Robert Smith could take my place. Fortunately, from all perspectives, John Smith was the best choice for David White's family. Unfortunately. I sat at the head of the Smith Corporation's table, feeling my limbs go numb. I didn't need to look up to sense the death stare from across the table. Why did the person sitting next to the decision-maker of David White's family have a face I had once toyed with? I stole a glance at him during the negotiations. Michael White gave a sinister smile, his lips slightly parted as he mouthed, "Surprised, sister?"
Surprised, sister.
Too surprised, I was about to be scared to death. Unfortunately, being aloof and otherworldly often means that once someone falls for you, it's an unstoppable force. An old flame reigniting is the most dangerous. During those 2 years, I merely sent him a few books I painstakingly found. I accompanied him on trips to small European countries during holidays and endured the cold to climb snowy mountains and stargaze with him. And he fell for me. He never confessed, but when I made cheesy romantic remarks, his smiles became increasingly gentle. I was always more tolerant of exceptionally handsome men. I convinced myself that maybe he just saw me as a close friend. Then, this faint hope shattered when he pointed out a certain nebula to me. The red nebula was incredibly beautiful, but its glaring shape left me with no choice but to think more deeply. I hurriedly left the telescope, only to hear Edward Johnson say,
Windsor, I've already talked to my family. We'll get married when we return home.
Married? What marriage? You with your thick eyebrows and big eyes. How could you do something so outrageous?
After confirming his feelings, I was so scared that I ran away without looking back. After that, I started deliberately avoiding Edward. Our roles seemed to have reversed. He became the one waiting downstairs, the one chasing after me to please me. The low emotional intelligence genius was clueless, having only seen my actions in this regard. Naturally, he subconsciously imitated me. But the more he did this, the more frightened I became. Just seeing his figure made me feel physically nauseous. When I couldn't see him, I found a moment of rationality amidst the panic and discomfort. I knew the problem was mine, he was completely innocent. But what did that have to do with me? I had pursued him in the same way, acted like a fool because I liked him. Now, he humbly tried to please me, replicating everything I had done, because he liked me. From any perspective, I owed him nothing. At most, I felt a bit guilty for stirring his feelings out of selfishness and then abandoning him. During that time, under the subtle manipulations of Sophia Lee, the Smith Corporation suffered continuous losses under my uncle's management. My grandfather completely gave up the idea of letting my uncle's family succeed, and I was grandly welcomed back as the heir. The plane took off with a roar, and I bid farewell to the place I had lived for 2 years. I left Windsor in the past, along with the memory of that cold young man named Edward. John Smith was striving to secure a collaboration opportunity with David White's family. For him, clinching this deal was crucial to solidifying his position as the heir. His uncle James Smith's family was eagerly eyeing his position, hoping for him to make a mistake so that his cousin Robert Smith could take his place.
Cheerful, this collaboration is essential, not just for me, but for the family's future. We need to secure this deal.
Fortunately, from all perspectives, John Smith was the best choice for David White's family. Unfortunately.
Why does the person sitting next to the decision-maker of David White's family have a face I once toyed with?
John stole a glance at the man during the negotiations. Michael White gave a sinister smile, his lips slightly parted as he mouthed, "Surprised, sister?"
Too surprised. I am about to be scared to death.
John Smith was striving to secure a collaboration opportunity with David White's family. For me, as long as I could clinch this deal, my position as the heir would be solidified. Whether for the sake of John or for my own benefit, this collaboration was crucial. After all, my Uncle James Smith's family was eagerly eyeing my position, hoping for me to make a mistake so that my cousin Robert Smith could take my place. Fortunately, from all perspectives, John Smith was the best choice for David White's family. Unfortunately. I sat at the head of the Smith Corporation's table, feeling my limbs go numb. I didn't need to look up to sense the intense glare from across the table. Why did the person sitting next to the decision-maker of David White's family have a face I had once played with? I stole a glance at him during the negotiations. Michael White gave a sinister smile, his lips slightly parted as he mouthed, "Surprised, sister?"
Surprised, sister?
Too surprised. I was about to be scared to death. I couldn't tell if Sophia Lee was desperately grasping at straws or if she simply didn't care about the character of my blind date. When I met Benjamin Carter, he was standing right next to my cousin. Birds of a feather flocked together. Anyone who could get along with Olivia Smith couldn't be anything good. Benjamin Carter's mother, Isabella Carter, greeted Sophia Lee politely. But her son was far less courteous.
It's good for a girl to be pretty, but relying on her looks to act recklessly is not respectable.
My sister just likes to have fun, which shows she has charm.
When men have fun, it's called charm. When she messes around, it's called shamelessness. If it weren't for the fact that she's your sister, I wouldn't want to marry such a woman.
He didn't bother to lower his voice at all. Isabella Carter looked bewildered, completely unaware of what was happening. After all, those photos had been suppressed, and the only way Benjamin Carter could have known was through Olivia Smith's kind-hearted disclosure. Sophia Lee's face turned grim, probably not expecting the Carter family's son to be so disrespectful to the John Smith family. But as an adult, she couldn't directly scold the younger generation. Daniel Carter and Olivia Smith continued to point fingers at me, one saying I spent money lavishly, the other saying I looked unfaithful. From the moment they started speaking, I fell silent, as I began to search my memory, recalling if there were any indispensable business dealings between the Carter and John Smith families. Is offending the Carter family a big deal? Not really. Even if there were future collaborations, would Mr. Carter refuse me because of his foolish son? No. So what was I afraid of? I splashed a glass of red wine on Daniel Carter's face and shoved the narrow wine glass into Olivia Smith's mouth. Seeing their shocked silence, I finally asked sincerely,
Are you trying to scare me? I'm so scared. Today is KFC Crazy Thursday, me 50, and I'll keep listening to your nonsense.
Isabella Carter was furious when her son was splashed with wine. Her reaction instantly made me understand why Daniel Carter turned out to be such a fool.
Miss Smith, where are your manners? Treating my son like this. Aren't you afraid our Carter family won't accept you as a daughter-in-law?
Ignoring the already fuming Sophia Lee beside her, Isabella Carter almost incoherently berated me.
You're not that young anymore. If it weren't for the John Smith family's reputation, do you really think you could find such a suitable husband?
I thought to myself, my ID clearly states I'm 25. How did I become an old maid in your mouth? No matter what Sophia Lee thought, she wouldn't tolerate her heir being insulted out of nowhere. The task of arguing with Isabella Carter naturally didn't fall on me. Since Sophia Lee had forced me to this blind date, she would have to swallow this bitter fruit herself. I was happy to step back and watch the drama unfold, but suddenly, a hand wrapped around my waist. The hand was very measured, just lightly resting on my side without exerting any force. But to outsiders, it looked like a very intimate gesture. I turned my head and saw Thomas White smiling at me. Why was Thomas White suddenly here?
No need for Mrs. Carter to worry about Olivia's marriage. My girlfriend, of course, will marry me.
The room fell silent after Thomas White's unexpected declaration.
Excuse me? Who is your girlfriend?
Everyone present was stunned, but Sophia Lee was the first to react, giving a half-smiling, half-mocking comment to break the ice.
I was wondering why you didn't want to come. Turns out you were secretly dating behind your mother's back.
Isabella Carter's face turned ashen, as anyone with eyes could see that Thomas White was far superior to her chubby son. Daniel Carter wanted to curse, but Olivia Smith held him back. Olivia Smith stared at Thomas White's hand around my waist, silent for a long time. He also realized that if Thomas White truly liked me, this collaboration would only add to the marriage between the two families. With the collaboration in hand and the David White family backing me, there was no way he could take the heir position from me. The reactions were varied, like a sitcom playing out on stage. But I had no leisure to enjoy the show. Thomas White's declaration of me being his girlfriend was so matter-of-fact, as if he were saying,
Let's have white radish for dinner.
He didn't seem to have any feelings for me, so I couldn't muster any negative emotions. But why did he say such a thing? Regarding the term girlfriend, Thomas White gave me a perfect explanation afterward.
If I didn't misunderstand, Miss Smith seems to like me.
So, being with me can keep those two guys in check and silence those who try to frame you. Indeed, as long as I was with Thomas White, the previous actions of Michael White and the others could be explained as delivering gifts on behalf of their uncle. A nephew visiting his aunt is not considered a scandal. I thought this idea was good too. Pretending to be in a relationship to suppress rumors, Thomas White was much more pleasing to the eye than Daniel Carter. Besides, Thomas White was exactly my type. When he seriously analyzed the benefits of this matter with me, it almost made my phantom limb stand up. But due to my distrust of the White family, I asked one more question. Are you sure you don't like me?
Miss Smith, we're not children. Let's talk business without involving emotions.
This is my destined husband. His expression made my soul leave my body, and I quickly covered my pounding heart. Confirming that Thomas White only loved money and not me, I instantly felt at ease. So, within 3 days, the news of the Smith Corporation heir and the current head of the White family being in a relationship made the front page of major newspapers. Leonard White didn't have much of a reaction to this. He was never one to show his emotions. The fact that he was willing to put down his binoculars and come over with Michael White to find me was already beyond my expectations. But Michael White was not one to swallow his anger. As soon as the news broke, Michael White stormed into my office. My 2 secretaries couldn't hold him back. Of course, they might have recognized this young master of the White family and didn't dare to stop him. After signaling the secretaries not to worry, I looked at Michael White with a pleasant expression. Is there something you need?
Why can he, but not me?
I couldn't directly say because your uncle doesn't like me. So I subtly hinted. Because he's more suitable. Someone who doesn't like me is the one who suits me. I wasn't sure how Michael White interpreted that sentence. He took a deep breath and slowly straightened his back. Someone who always seemed like a proud little cat suddenly showed a hint of sharpness in his eyes.
I understand. I will do better than him in business or anything else. I'm younger and have more potential. One day, I will become the person who is more suitable for you.
Without waiting for me to respond, Michael White left my office without looking back. In that moment, I couldn't tell if I felt guilty or disappointed. But I knew very well that by the time he became the so-called more suitable person for me, he would no longer be fixated on me. And that would be fine. Someone like me. Thomas White's phone call interrupted my dark thoughts. On the other end, his voice was very gentle, with just the right amount of distance. It wasn't overly familiar, nor was it too abrupt.
Sorry, I heard that Michael came to see you. It's my fault for not managing him well. As an apology, let me treat Miss Smith to dinner.
Naturally, I couldn't refuse an invitation from my dream man. The excitement of a date with my idol instantly washed away any guilt I felt towards Michael White. I really am a wicked woman, huh? John Smith was striving to secure a collaboration opportunity with David White's family. For me, as long as I could clinch this deal, my position as the heir would be solidified. Whether for John Smith's sake or for my own benefit, this collaboration was crucial. After all, my Uncle James Smith's family was eagerly eyeing my position, hoping for me to make a mistake so that my cousin Robert Smith could take my place.
Fortunately, from all perspectives, I am the best choice for David White's family. Unfortunately,
I sat at the head of the Smith Corporation's table, feeling my limbs go numb. I didn't need to look up to sense the death stare from across the table. Why did the person sitting next to the decision-maker of David White's family have a face I had once toyed with? I stole a glance at him during the negotiations. Michael White gave a sinister smile, his lips slightly parted as he mouthed, "Surprised, sister?"
Surprised, sister.
Too surprised, I was about to be scared to death. Thankfully, Thomas White didn't join in with any malicious intent. He didn't make any sarcastic comments or say anything to stir up trouble. Throughout the meal, he quietly added ingredients to the hot pot at the right times. Everything I liked to eat, he put into the spicy side of the pot. If knowing I liked hot pot could be explained by Michael White, then knowing my favorite vegetables and preferred spicy sauces left me completely bewildered. When I was 5, my father was harmed by a bankrupt business rival. Since then, Sophia Lee seemed to have developed a stress disorder, becoming overly concerned with my diet. She didn't allow me to be picky or show too much preference for any particular food, much like an ancient emperor. Even Leonard White, who had lived with me for 2 years, wouldn't know my dietary preferences. But when Michael White tried to pour me a glass of milk to ease the spiciness, Thomas White silently moved my cup away and filled it with tea instead. Almost no one knew that I didn't drink milk. Although I wasn't allergic, milk always made me feel extremely uncomfortable. As a child, I couldn't stand the taste of milk, but Sophia Lee insisted that since I wasn't lactose intolerant, I had no reason to be picky. Even if I felt unwell after drinking it, she would force me to finish a whole glass of milk before bed. So, once I had the choice, milk never came near me again. This was something almost no one knew about after I became an adult. So how did Thomas White know?
What are you doing?
Michael White glared angrily, holding the milk carton and looking at Thomas White with dissatisfaction.
Miss Smith is my girlfriend now. You need to be mindful of your actions.
Phew. I breathed a sigh of relief. So, it was just to warn Michael White. He scared me for a moment there. I almost thought he had secretly admired me for years and knew all my hidden habits. John Smith was striving to secure a collaboration opportunity with the White family. This deal was crucial for both his position and his family's future.
If I can clinch this deal, my position as the heir will be solidified.
John's uncle, James Smith, and his cousin, Robert Smith, were eagerly eyeing his position, hoping for him to make a mistake.
Whether for my sake or for the Smith family, this collaboration is vital.
From all perspectives, John Smith seemed to be the best choice for the White family. But unfortunately,
Why is the person sitting next to the decision-maker of the White family someone I once toyed with?
John sat at the head of the Smith Corporation's table, feeling his limbs go numb. He stole a glance at the man during the negotiations.
Surprised, sister?
Too surprised. John was about to be scared to death. Dr. Trish was a middle-aged woman with black hair and green eyes. This is the gender and age that most easily evokes goodwill because it reminds people of their mothers. It is also the gender and age I resist the most because it reminds me of my mother, Sophia Lee. However, Dr. Trish lived up to her reputation. Every session with her helped me relax significantly.
Just chatting and relaxing could easily earn you an extra 10% profit. You have nothing to lose.
Dr. Trish was very encouraging. Every time I was willing to talk a bit more about the past, she would lavish praise on me. My false sense of relief was transparent to her. Perhaps it was because I liked her voice. Our therapy sessions indeed progressed well.
You should find a healing partner. Someone you wouldn't resist and could fully trust.
I could reluctantly be your partner.
I am quieter and more suitable to accompany you for healing.
Michael White was shocked to see his brother betray him at this moment. The two of them argued, listing reasons why they were suitable, completely ignoring Thomas White, who sat quietly on the side.
Uncle is usually very busy, unlike us who have enough time to accompany you.
Thomas White just smiled at this, not making any effort to argue for himself. He didn't need to, because I would only choose him. Our interests bind us together, which is the strongest bond in the world. After hearing my reasons for choosing Thomas White, everyone fell silent. Even the indignant Michael White closed his mouth. I felt my logic was flawless, so I ignored their unspoken words. Don't look at me with pity. At least I have money. A lot of money. John Smith was striving to secure a collaboration opportunity with David White's family. For him, clinching this deal was crucial to solidify his position as the heir. His uncle James Smith's family was eagerly eyeing his position, hoping for him to make a mistake so that his cousin Robert Smith could take his place.
Relieved, fortunately, from all perspectives, I am the best choice for David White's family.
Unfortunately, things were not that simple.
I sat at the head of the Smith Corporation's table, feeling my limbs go numb. I didn't need to look up to sense the death stare from across the table. Why did the person sitting next to the decision-maker of David White's family have a face I had once toyed with?
Surprised, sister.
Too surprised, I was about to pass out in fear.
John Smith was striving to secure a collaboration opportunity with David White's family. For me, as long as I could clinch this deal, my position as the heir would be solidified. Whether for the sake of John Smith or for my own benefit, this collaboration was crucial. After all, my Uncle James Smith's family was eagerly eyeing my position, hoping for me to make a mistake so that my cousin Robert Smith could take my place. Fortunately, from all perspectives, John Smith was the best choice for David White's family. Unfortunately, I sat at the head of the Smith Corporation's table, feeling my limbs go numb. I didn't need to look up to sense the death stare from across the table. Why did the person sitting next to the decision-maker of David White's family have a face I had once toyed with? I stole a glance at him during the negotiations. Michael White gave a sinister smile, his lips slightly parted as he mouthed, "Surprised, sister?"
Surprised, sister.
Too surprised, I was about to be scared to death. John Smith was striving to secure a collaboration opportunity with David White's family. For Emily Smith, clinching this deal was crucial. Her position as the heir depended on it. Whether for John Smith's sake or her own benefit, this collaboration was essential. After all, her Uncle James Smith's family was eagerly waiting for her to falter, hoping her cousin Robert Smith could take her place. Fortunately, from all perspectives, John Smith was the best choice for David White's family. Unfortunately, Emily sat at the head of the Smith Corporation's table, feeling her limbs go numb. She didn't need to look up to sense the intense glare from across the table. Why did the person sitting next to the decision-maker of David White's family have a face she had once known too well?
Michael?
During the negotiations, Emily stole a glance at him. Michael White gave a sinister smile, his lips slightly parted as he mouthed the words.
Surprised, sister?
Too surprised, Emily was about to be scared out of her wits. Seeing that I didn't want to mention Thomas White, Sophia Lee never brought up those 3 words again. However, apart from work, we had nothing else to talk about.
Remember that time when I was abroad and I got lost in Paris? It was quite an adventure.
Sophia Lee was obviously stiff, but she still played along with me.
Yes, I remember you mentioning that. It must have been quite the experience.
Although the conversation remained awkward and stiff, at least we didn't argue anymore.
Is your work very busy lately? Is it okay for you to stay up this late?
Sophia Lee's hand holding the water cup stiffened, seemingly at a loss for my sudden concern.
You should take care of yourself too, you know.
Late at night, we lay stiffly on the same bed, as if it were a summer night before I turned 5.
Do you remember our old summer nights, Emily? Before everything got so complicated?
She took the initiative to bring up the past. She said that after talking with Thomas White, she also reflected on whether she had gone too far.
When did you meet Thomas privately?
This doubt quickly passed because Sophia Lee suddenly sighed tiredly.
I just wanted to protect you, Emily. I was afraid you would leave me like your father did. But why did I end up causing you the greatest harm? I don't know, Mom.
I turned my back to her, tears silently soaking my pillow.
Emily, Mom will go with you to see that doctor. We'll take it slow, okay?
John Smith was striving to secure a collaboration opportunity with David White's family. For me, clinching this deal would solidify my position as the heir. My Uncle James Smith's family was eagerly eyeing my position, hoping for me to make a mistake so that my cousin Robert Smith could take my place.
This collaboration is crucial. It's our best chance.
Fortunately, from all perspectives, John Smith was the best choice for David White's family. Unfortunately, I sat at the head of the Smith Corporation's table, feeling my limbs go numb. I didn't need to look up to sense the death stare from across the table. Why did the person sitting next to the decision-maker of David White's family have a face I had once toyed with? I stole a glance at him during the negotiations. Michael White gave a sinister smile, his lips slightly parted as he mouthed, "Surprised, sister?"
Surprised, sister?
Too surprised, I was about to be scared to death. Narrator, tone, serious. John Smith was striving to secure a collaboration opportunity with David White's family. This deal was crucial for him to solidify his position as the heir. His uncle, James Smith's family, was eagerly eyeing his spot, hoping for a mistake that would allow his cousin Robert Smith to take his place. John sat at the head of the Smith Corporation's table, feeling his limbs go numb. He didn't need to look up to sense the intense stare from across the table.
John Smith, tone, terrified. Why does the person next to the decision-maker of David White's family look so familiar?
He stole a glance during the negotiations. Michael White gave a sinister smile, his lips slightly parted as he mouthed.
Michael White, tone, unfriendly. Surprised, sister?
John was too surprised, almost scared to death. My uncle never cleaned up his messes thoroughly, and in this regard, Michael White was a genius. Within a month, we had gathered the evidence. This time, even though my uncle tearfully reminisced about old times, saying how much my father used to care for him, Sophia Lee was no longer soft-hearted.
For the sake of Chisa, I've always turned a blind eye to you, but you can't bully my daughter.
My uncle was sent to prison, and the collaboration between the Smith and White families continued to flourish. Every weekend, regardless of work progress, I would sit down with Sophia Lee for a home-cooked meal. Our conversations evolved from work reports to casual chats. I gradually learned that Sophia Lee also read light novels to relieve stress when work pressure was high. The formidable, mountain-like mother turned out to be not so different from me in private matters.
When you think the time is right, you can bring Thomas White home for me to meet. Although he seems like a good kid, I need to see if he's truly suitable for you.
Only then did I remember the doubt I had ignored that day.
Mom, you said Thomas White talked to you before. When was that?
When you were in high school? Thomas White had just taken over the White family and was finally stabilizing things. I thought he wanted my help, but it turned out that a 20-year-old kid came to talk to me about child education.
Sophia Lee recalled with a bitter smile, saying she was somewhat displeased at the time, but Thomas White told her.
Your daughter already has a sense of despair. Isn't that important?
It was then that she vaguely realized she had been pushing me too hard, and I hadn't called her mom in a long time. So this was the truth behind my high school relief.
It wasn't because of improved grades, but because of Thomas White's conversation.
But why?
Did I know Thomas White before?
John Smith was striving to secure a collaboration opportunity with David White's family. For me, as long as I could clinch this deal, my position as the heir would be solidified. Whether for John Smith or for my own benefit, this collaboration was crucial. After all, my Uncle James Smith's family was eagerly eyeing my position, hoping for me to make a mistake so that my cousin Robert Smith could take my place. Fortunately, from all perspectives, John Smith was the best choice for David White's family. Unfortunately,
I sat at the head of the Smith Corporation's table, feeling my limbs go numb. I didn't need to look up to sense the death stare from across the table. Why did the person sitting next to the decision-maker of David White's family have a face I had once toyed with?
I stole a glance at him during the negotiations. Michael White gave a sinister smile, his lips slightly parted as he mouthed.
Surprised, sister?
Too surprised, I was about to be scared to death.
John Smith was striving to secure a collaboration opportunity with David White's family. For him, clinching this deal meant solidifying his position as the heir. Whether for the sake of John Smith or for his own benefit, this collaboration was crucial. After all, his uncle James Smith's family was eagerly eyeing his position, hoping for him to make a mistake so that his cousin Robert Smith could take his place. Fortunately, from all perspectives, John Smith was the best choice for David White's family. Unfortunately, John sat at the head of the Smith Corporation's table, feeling his limbs go numb. He didn't need to look up to sense the death stare from across the table. Why did the person sitting next to the decision-maker of David White's family have a face he had once toyed with?
He stole a glance at him during the negotiations. Michael White gave a sinister smile, his lips slightly parted as he mouthed, "Surprised, sister?"
Too surprised. I was about to be scared to death.
John Smith was striving to secure a collaboration opportunity with David White's family. For me, this deal was crucial, both for John's sake and to solidify my position as the heir. My uncle James Smith's family, especially my cousin Robert, were eagerly waiting for me to slip up. Despite John being the ideal choice for the Whites, things were complicated.
I sat at the head of the Smith Corporation's table, feeling numb. I didn't need to look up to sense the intense glare from across the table. Why did the person next to David White's decision-maker have a face I had once wronged?
During negotiations, I stole a glance at him. Michael White gave a sinister smile and mouthed,
"Surprised, sister?"
Too surprised, I was about to be scared out of my wits.
Thomas White took my right hand and gently kissed it. He apologized, saying that his sudden departure back then was unavoidable, and asked if I would give him a chance to take care of me. I was stunned by the overwhelming amount of information.
I'm truly sorry for leaving suddenly. It was unavoidable. Can you give me a chance to take care of you now?
Before I could speak, a black cat suddenly jumped out of the bushes nearby. No, it was Michael White. Who knows how much this kid had overheard?
What chance? You had your chance and blew it. Leave the opportunity to the younger generation.
Thomas White's temple throbbed, and he took a deep breath, using almost all his familial affection to muster a polite smile.
How did you manage to follow us again?
Humph, you can fool me, but not the butler. Leonard White's face is perfect for getting information.
As he finished speaking, Leonard White, who had been hiding in the bushes, emerged, his ears red and brushing leaves off his shoulders. Was that obedient student face meant for this?
Windsor, you pulled me back to earth from the stars. I know I'm not as charming as Michael, nor as experienced as Uncle, but all I can offer you is my true heart. I see 1805, remember?
That was the heart nebula he had once given me. I opened my mouth to speak, but before I could, Michael White grabbed my left hand, which Thomas White hadn't taken.
"Leonard, you're so cunning, using retreat as a strategy."
Leonard White smiled, his face full of embarrassment but not denying it. Michael White was furious, but his anger quickly dissipated as he remembered his greatest advantage.
Sis, they're both older. Look at me, didn't you say you liked my face?
As he spoke, he guided my hand to touch his cheek. The beautiful boy's eyes blinked, leaving my desires nowhere to hide.
She likes all three of our faces. What good is being young? Will you take care of her in old age?
Michael White, under siege, shouted, "I don't care, I want a fair competition. Now that sis is healed, let's all start from scratch and pursue her."
"I don't care. I want a fair competition. Now that sis is healed, let's all start from scratch and pursue her."
Leonard White nodded in agreement, but Thomas White wasn't falling for it. He raised our interlocked hands and said innocently,
Alas, there's no way. Uncle and Miss Smith have already gone public. We've been in the news and met the parents. Fair competition? You can compete to see who calls her aunt first, and I'll give a bigger red envelope to the winner.
Michael White, of course, refused to acknowledge this relationship, his protests carried away by the spring breeze. The spring breeze blew across the riverbanks, sweeping away the gloom and bringing new life. The grievances and mistakes of our youth were ultimately dispersed by this spring breeze. We stood there, half-jokingly arguing with each other, while the spring breeze continued to blow, carrying our hopes for the future forward. A better future will eventually come.
The end.